Fellas, welcome back. We are finally back with more reaction videos. I know, it took a hot minute. A super hot minute. Like, dude, a lot has been going on, okay? The only thing I've been doing is shorts, and that's really it. I've been busy with life. School, church, work. I don't know how the hell I forgot about work. Anyway, but today, we're going to be looking at beloved musicians who were horrible people. Now, the only horrible musician that I know is a horrible person, by fact, is Elvis Presley. How do I know that? Dude, his wife was literally like 14. Yeah, she was 14, wasn't she? I think she was. And he was like, in like middle, he was like, I don't know. He was like late 20s, I think, when he was with her. So, yeah, he's not a good guy. And I do believe that there's more stuff with him. But anyway, we're going to see this video by my man, Matty Balls. Yeah, that's what it says. Matty Balls, I support you, man. Anyway, we're going to be looking at this video. I love you guys. I'm so happy I'm back. Hopefully we can do more reactions down the line. Anyway, let's go.
Recently, I was watching a video called Great People Who Weren't Good People, about people like Gandhi, Steve Jobs, and Martin Luther
Gandhi's
King,
definitely
who
a
all had
pedo.
major flaws.
And Martin Luther King, that man cheated on his wife way too many times.
That were actually bad people. And very quickly, I realized that you and I were in for quite the ride. So join me today as we look into great musicians who weren't the greatest people. Everyone knows Elvis, and there's no denying his impact.
Dude, what did I just say? I literally just said Elvis.
But what a lot of people don't know is that he had some much darker sides of his life, many of which were shown in his 2022 biopic, which I thought was a bad movie, by the way. I wasn't a fan at all. I was Doja Cat.
I thought that movie was okay.
Regardless, his dark side might be a little shocking, especially since it kind of flips the charming image of Elvis that many of us have into something much more sinister. First of all, Elvis notoriously met his wife Priscilla when she was only 14 years old.
I knew it!
In 1959,
I shouldn't be excited about that.
Well stationed in Germany. At that point, he was already 24, so not only was there a 10-year age gap, but it was especially disturbing. Despite the disgusting age difference, this didn't stop Elvis from making some questionable advances, and it didn't end there. Elvis and Priscilla officially decided to pursue a relationship, which eventually went long distance when he returned back to the States. After leaving Germany, the two didn't see each other face to face until 3 years later in 1962. They started talking regularly over the phone, and then in 1967, when she was 22, Elvis married her. To make matters worse, throughout the already unethical and illegal relationship, Elvis was never really exclusive and constantly cheated on her, which led to their 1973 divorce.
I just kind of followed, what he...
Low-key, I feel like every single musician cheats on their wife. Anybody who has a shitload of money and a shitload of fans is gonna eventually cheat on their wife. Hopefully I never get that big on YouTube. Actually, that'll never happen. Let me shut my ass up.
Lived his life. You honestly didn't have your own life.
Wait, that's her?
Lived his life.
But Elvis's tirades didn't end there, specifically because Priscilla was far from the only underage girl he had his eyes on. During the height of his fame, Elvis abused his power to manipulate young, impressionable fans wherever he went on tour. Joel Williamson, author of Elvis Presley: A Southern Life, claimed that 2 years before Elvis met his future wife, he took a group of 3 14-year-old girls with him on tour who were up for pillow fights, tickling, kissing, and cuddling. And you might think that the
I knew he was bad. I didn't know he was this bad.
Drugs corrupted him, but apparently Elvis was always kind of weird. Back when he was 19, before the musical success, Williamson said elsewhere in his book that Elvis had a 15-year-old girlfriend when he was 19, and that the singer was obsessed with virginity. And his issues with women aren't just about their age, because he also seemed to treat them pretty poorly. Elvis was a manipulator who was extremely controlling, and his abuse wasn't just mental, and he'd often resort to violence. He met Ginger Alden when she was 20 and he was 41. She was a pageant queen hoping to marry the star, but their relationship had some pretty problematic roots. His treatment of her was horrible, and the couple constantly argued during their time together. After one particularly bad fight, Elvis allegedly asked one of his assistants to pop the tires on her car so she couldn't leave his home. And on another occasion, when she was able to drive away after a fight, it was alleged that he fired a gunshot at her.
What?
The two were engaged to be married. Their toxic relationship never quite made it that far, and resorting to violence was something that Priscilla had to deal with as well. In her 1985 memoir, Priscilla detailed a bunch of problematic behaviors from Elvis. She described instances where he would give her pills to help her sleep or relax, but in retrospect, many have started to speculate if the pills were all a part of his master plan of control and manipulation. Some reports even go as far to claim that Elvis spiked Priscilla with amphetamines to keep her awake for marathon sex sessions. Apparently, he was first introduced to amphetamines in the military.
Wait, what? Marathon sex sessions. What does that even mean? Is that like... Are you trying to tell me this man had a Diddy party, but an Elvis party? It's always weird, because like when they show off Elvis in like movies, he's always like he's like a dumbass guy who doesn't really know what's going on. Or, I mean, he doesn't always know what's going on. What I mean is, like, they kind of make him very impressionable. But apparently in real life, he was a manipulator, so... Who knows, man?
Severely addicted. And after these drug-fueled sex sessions, Elvis is also said to have taken photographs on a Polaroid camera, which he stored in a silver suitcase delivered to Priscilla after his death, years after their divorce, which is a very weird move, to say the least.
Yeah.
On top of all of this, Elvis also had some pretty rough racism allegations. More recently, legendary producer Quincy Jones revealed that he always refused working with Elvis because he was racist. Quincy explained, "No, I wouldn't work with him. I was writing for orchestra leader Tommy Dorsey. Oh god, back in the 50s, and Elvis came in, and
What?
Tommy said, I don't want to play with him. He was a racist motherfucker. I'm gonna shut up now." And depictions of Elvis being racist...
Wait, I didn't know that. I thought Elvis was like, you know, like... Didn't he like help out the black community? Or am I tripping? I thought he did.
Come from Quincy either. Public Enemy's Fight the Power includes lyrics which read, "Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to me. Straight up racist that sucker was, simple and plain." On top of this, he undeniably had some big appropriation issues. I mean, it's pretty well known that he sort of just stole his sound. And in combination with everything else we do know for sure about the content of his character, I don't think anyone would be all that surprised if that was the case. And it may not be too surprising to hear that a white guy like Elvis back then was racist, but I was in disbelief when I heard allegations of James Brown being racist too. James Brown was a legendary musician who arguably trailblazed the funk music genre and influenced countless others.
Wait, how are you racist if to your own kind? Or is he like racist to white people? Let me shut up and let's just get on with the video.
Throughout his career, his successes have led to a bunch of nicknames like Mr. Dynamite, the hardest working man in show business, Minister of New Super Heavy Funk, the Godfather of Soul, the King of Soul, and many more. And let's be honest, to have that many dope
I don't really know that much about James
iconic.
Brown,
In his
but I have heard some of his music. It is pretty good.
Changed music, but his massive success wasn't without controversy. This Redditor puts it plainly, saying, "I love James Brown, but he was an awful human." And this sentiment isn't really all that rare either, with some fans twisting one of his most iconic nicknames into the hardest working asshole in show business. While James' music and lyrics are undeniably and crucially connected to progress and civil rights, apparently his relationship to the black people he touched most directly, those who worked for him, was cruel, petty, and contemptuous. Some former employees, like journalist Glenn Ford, even go as far to say that Mr. Brown held only one black person in high regard, himself. According to Glenn Ford, I guess James Brown was moving like Uncle Ruckus. To be fair though, this is the only source that I'm seeing claim this, so take the racist allegations he has with a grain of salt, but it is true that Glenn worked for him and he was a respected journalist, so it could be very possible. Which again is quite shocking to hear from many fans, especially considering the often direct titles of his songs, like his 1968 hit Say It Loud.
Why does he look so sweaty?
However, like I mentioned with takes from some critics, while James lifted up black Americans en masse, those around him definitely had a very different experience. Glenn said that when James was around, his employees were often expected to treat him in a near godlike way, having a whole welcoming ritual planned every time he arrived. On top of this, if each employee didn't speak formally to each other, like with Mr., Mrs., or Miss, it was a fireable offense. And it wasn't just lower members of his organization that felt extreme pressure. Even members of his band faced wild punishments, including things like mowing the lawn at his radio stations to pay off fines imposed by James. During a civil rights related boycott in his adopted hometown of Augusta, Georgia, where he also owned a major radio station that Glenn worked at, there were some weird decisions that were made. Glenn stated that while James donated $600 to the bail fund, his efforts behind the scenes painted a completely different picture. On day one of the boycott, Glenn was set to promote it as one of the main mouthpieces of support, but James left a note around his microphone that he saw the next morning that said, "There will be no mention of the downtown merchants boycott on this radio station." This order kind of killed the movement, and one that James' employees believes was intentional, choosing advertisers over his own people. Again, this chunk of information is mostly from Glenn Ford, so take it all with a grain of salt, but it is very fascinating if true. And it might not be too hard to believe considering the other wrongdoings he's been accused of. James Brown was known to have abused drugs and alcohol throughout his life, which led to even worse abuses of his own
every
wives
musician
and
has like a
which
drug
has
face.
been well documented. With James' first wife, Velma Warren, not much has been been publicly documented about his treatment of her. With his second wife, Deirdre Jenkins, James' daughters described a hellish relationship. They described the abuse like thunder rolling through the house when their mom was thrown against walls. Then when silence came was the worst part, as the daughters wondered if it meant their own mom was killed. In one graphic
I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand, as a man, how could you hit a woman? I don't get. I mean, I could understand if it's like a life or death situation, and you're like, well, I gotta put my hands on you, you know, I gotta hit you, you know, because you're trying to hurt me in a very bad way. But I don't know. I don't know. Just hitting a woman in my mind doesn't make sense. I can't even imagine even like just hurting a person that's the opposite gender. I don't know. It never connected with me. Never got it.
They describe witnessing James on top of their mom with punching her hard with blood everywhere. And
Damn.
these are only a couple of the alleged stories. With James' third wife, Adrienne Rodriguez, similar allegations were mentioned. Adrienne reported that on one occasion, James beat her with an iron pipe and even shot at her car, which led to his arrest in 1988, and similar circumstances leading to 3 other arrests for assault as well. And then to clear up the air, he decided to do this really entertaining interview.
How did all of this trouble begin?
Living in America. There's nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong at all. You're not in any difficulty, but you're out on bond.
No, I'm not.
Have all the charges been dropped?
What?
Yeah, I'm out on love. Alone from night to night, you find me.
Now, James, this is
You got a nice
time
voice,
you
I
and
can't
your
even
wife
lie.
have had a problem. Are the two of you going to be able to work this out?
Let's talk about some music.
You want to talk about music, and you don't want to talk about what happened.
No, it's all over.
Well, let's talk about your tour. When are you leaving?
Things got so bad that around the 1995 arrest, Adrienne was hospitalized, but the charges were dropped since that next year she passed away from surgery complications, which
Damn.
of course also spawned a bunch of conspiracies.
Bro, what did she
Then
do
comes
to get
his
him
fourth
that
wife,
mad?
Tommy Heine, who again had some dark relations with James. She alleged that on one occasion James pushed her to the floor and threatened her with a chair, which led to an arrest, and he actually even pled guilty / no contest, but instead of any jail time, James was only slapped with a fine. And abusive patterns like these were reported by other girlfriends of James as well, making it seemingly unlikely that
I am so sick and tired. Hold up. I am so sick and tired of seeing people. Where the hell is it? I can't even look for it. My goofy ass. Where is it? Where
it's
is it?
seemingly unlikely that all of his
Bro,
spouses could just be going for money.
I
On top
am
of all these horrible actions, James
so
was also accused of in
sick
2005 when his former publicist,
and
Jock
tired.
Hollander,
Am I
filed a
skipping
lawsuit
ahead?
against him, all stemming from a
know what?
1998
Never
that
mind.
threatened her with a chair, which led to an arrest.
I was just
and
gonna
he actually
say
even pled
that-
guilty / no contest, but instead of any jail time, James was only slapped with a
I don't understand the whole Hollywood stars shit. I'm in Hollywood. Like, I go around that area all the time. I go in Hollywood. There's nothing exciting in Hollywood. I don't know why the fuck people think Hollywood is such a great thing. It's not, okay? It smells like shit. There's people tweaking in the street. You got Temu Spider-Mans going around wanting a damn picture. It sucks ass, okay? Being in Hollywood sucks, okay? There's nothing special about being in Hollywood, okay? Anyway, I just had to get that out there. I was in Hollywood last week. Had a bad experience. Yeah, I shit on the floor. I'm a shit on one of those like star, like one of those like stars with the person's name. I don't give a shit, dude. I don't care. Good for you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud you got your little reward on the floor, but I don't care. Okay, I just don't. Anyway.
fine. And abusive patterns like these were reported by other girlfriends of James as well, making it seemingly unlikely that all of the spouses could just be going for money. On top of all these horrible actions, James was also accused of in 2005 when his former publicist, Jacques Hollander, filed a lawsuit against him, all stemming from a 1988 incident where Jacques alleges he assaulted her while holding her at shotgun point. But since the case was brought up beyond the statute of limitations and other legal reasons, it was dismissed. So with all
I did not know he was this much of a bro.
Spouses.
This is like Batman level criminals. Like I didn't know these people were that bad. We were literally living in a world that is literally like The Boys. You know The Boys from Amazon Prime. You know Homelander, The Deep, all that. I don't know. I feel like we're living in a world that's literally The Boys. I can't even imagine what would happen in real life if we had superpowers. Imagine how crazy that would be.
And everyone in between, it's safe to assume James Brown probably wasn't the best guy. But James Brown is only one person, as it's pretty crazy to think about the fact that
let's see
two
who
of
the
the
next one
Beatles
is.
were both abusive. John Lennon and Ringo Starr are both some of the biggest
Beatles?
musicians in the world and are most notably members of the Beatles.
I'm just thinking about how much of a unk I am, bro. I literally know. I mean, I don't know them, but like I don't know them by person, but I know their songs. I've listened to them when I was younger and even a little bit as a teenager. I like their songs. Gotta be honest. I'm a unk. I'm proud saying it.
In particular got a massive amount of love from fans, and he's remembered especially because of his tragic murder. And because of this, many people sort of forget about the darker side of his legacy, which is honestly a little bit surprising because he doesn't seem to really hide it too much in his music. In his song Getting Better, John openly sings about being a neglectful and even abusive husband and father. The lyrics read, "I used to be cruel to my woman, I beat her and kept her apart from the things that she loved." And this wasn't a one-off mention either. In John's most comprehensive interview, which was conducted with Playboy
Wasn't
in
John
1980,
Lennon like
right
a
before his
peaceful
death,
hippie?
he said, "All that I used to be cruel to my woman, I beat her and kept her apart from the things that she loved, was me. I used to be cruel to my woman, and physically, any woman. I was a hitter. I couldn't express myself and I hit. I fought men and I hit women. That is why I am always on about peace, you see? It is the most violent people who go for love and peace. Everything's the opposite, but I sincerely believe in love and peace. I'm a violent man who has learned not to be violent and regrets his violence. I will have to be a lot older before I can face in public how I treated women as a youngster." And John spoke in many other occasions about his past violence, detailing his issues with alcohol and how it made him violent to the point where he thought he almost killed those he fought on multiple occasions. To be as objective as possible, I don't think John hit women like super regularly. At least that's the argument I see his fans making. But hitting women in general is wrong, and I think we can all agree on that. Many of these controversies are scattered throughout his discography, like with the earlier mentioned songs and more, including The Ballad of John and Yoko and Cold Turkey, where he discussed his life and struggles with heroin. And instead of hiding his mistakes, it's interesting that he instead chose to sing about them. In a similar situation, fellow Beatle Ringo Starr is also guilty of being abusive. After drinking too much and cheating on his first wife Maureen regularly, he got divorced. He even referred to himself as a drunk, a wife beater, and an absent father. After they were divorced, he eventually remarried to a lady named Barbara. There are very few sources except for one book on this, so again, take this with a grain of salt, but it seems to be common knowledge among Beatles fans, especially on Reddit. Regardless, in a book by Andrew Grant Jackson called Still the Greatest, The Essential Songs
not gonna lie, I don't really know
careers,
these
the author
people
writes,
like that,
"By
so
the
I
late
don't really know that much
1980s,
of their
Starr was
lore.
blacking out often and getting violent.
I just
He later
listened to
said,
their music,
I came
that's
to
it.
one Friday afternoon and was told by the staff that I had trashed the house so badly they thought there had been burglars. And I'd trashed Barbara so badly they thought she was dead." Eventually he sobered up and remained with her, but this trend that many of these artists have of getting high or drunk and then hitting their wives is pretty crazy to me. Never once have I been on any substance and felt the need to hit my girl, so I don't think there's really any justifying this, as some diehard fans may suggest. And for a lot of these people, a lot of these incidents were towards the end of their careers, so it's tough to say how successful they would have been had these allegations come out sooner. But Dr. Dre, despite there being a mound of evidence for him being abusive, somehow managed to become one of the few billionaires to come from hip-hop. Dr. Dre is among many of the most recognizable names in hip-hop, and this is for multiple reasons.
I don't think I've
including
heard
his
that many
involvement with
music
Beats
from
Headphones,
Dr.
Death
Dre.
Row Records,
From what I
NWA,
know.
and plenty of other massive projects. The point is, we all know who Dr. Dre is to a degree, but what I guess most people don't seem to know is his dark side. Throughout his long, multi-decade spanning career in the music industry, Dr. Dre has been accused of multiple incidents of violence against women. In 1991, at a music industry party, Dr. Dre assaulted television host Dee Barnes following an episode of her show Pump It Up. In the episode, Dee interviewed NWA as well as Ice Cube separately, where he kind of proceeded to mock NWA. This upset Dr. Dre, so for some reason he approached Dee, the interviewer, picked her up by her hair and ear, then proceeded to slam her head and body into the wall. When she fell to the ground, he continued kicking her
What
in
type
the
of
ribs and
Omni-Man
stomping
ass
on her
move?
fingers. As she tried to escape, she went to the bathroom, but Dre kicked open the door and struck her multiple times in the back of the head. For even more context, she was 5'3" and Dr. Dre's 6'1", so kind of crazy. As a result, Dee filed a $22 million lawsuit against Dre. He was also fined, given 2 years of probation, ordered to undergo 240 hours of community service, and was forced to speak out against violence on TV. While the suit was settled out of court, Dre's response to the situation was pretty shocking. Instead of apologizing, he said, "People talk all this shit, but you know, somebody f***ed with me, I'm gonna f*** with them. I just did it, you know? Ain't nothing you can do now by talking about it. Besides, it ain't no big thing. I just threw her through a door." But Dre's abuse of women didn't end there. Later on in 2015, Michelle, the mother of one of his kids, accused him of domestic violence during their time together, but did not take legal action. Unlike Dre's incident with Dee, his abuse of Michelle lasted years while they were together. According to Michelle, it resulted in 5 black eyes and a bunch of other scars throughout her body.
So you were getting punched in the face and then...
Oh, I was getting dragged on the floor, shot at, yeah.
Shot at?
Yeah, and I guess I don't know what I always did. And
Why does she sound like Minnie Mouse? What is that, her actual voice, or did she take so many drugs that it just somehow made her voice sound like that? I'm actually curious if that's her actual voice. That's an interesting voice.
Say, well, it could have been just me. So one day one night we was arguing, he went and got the gun, and I just made it through the bathroom door and he shot at me and he missed me by that much.
What the
Abusive
fuck?
patterns like this caused Michelle to leave on multiple occasions, but they always seemed to get back together. All the while, his
Damn.
assaults continued, and on
That's
top of
low-key
that, he
sad,
was constantly
bro.
cheating to the point where he got multiple other women pregnant. And adding another layer, Michelle was dating Dre when he attacked Dee, which is just insane. However, the run of abuse doesn't end there, as another one of Dre's baby mamas, Lisa Johnson, stated that Dre beat her many times, including while she was pregnant, and eventually she was granted a restraining order against him. In combination with the other accusations, former label mate Terry B claimed Dre assaulted her at a party as well in response to one of her tracks. Eventually, the accusations started to get so big that Dre had to address them. So he did so during his press run for Straight Outta Compton. He said, "I made some fucking horrible mistakes in my life. I was young, fucking stupid. I would say all the allegations aren't true, but some of them are. Those are some of the things that I would like to take back. It was really fucked up, but I paid for those
I
mistakes.
mean, at least they
and there's no
regret
way
their
in hell that I will
decisions. I
ever
mean, I
make
think
another
that's all that
mistake like
matters
that
at the end of the
again."
day.
And he would repeat this sentiment for years in following interviews, but it was received with little sincerity from those he abused. Unlike Dr. Dre, though, XXXTentacion's violent allegations were part of what fueled his rise. I mean, he was bragging about fighting the Migos at his peak.
Amigos, straight up. Look at this shit. Y'all niggas had the chance to kill me. How you have?
You know what's crazy? I've never got into, what the hell is his name? XX? Is that his name? I never got into his music. Never. Hopefully I don't get hate off of that.
I ain't shoot me. Quavo, Offset. That pussy. What's it called? Lift off. Fuck all y'all pussy ass niggas. All y'all.
So it's no surprise that X had a very troubled past before his untimely death. XXXTentacion had one of the fastest rises
he
to
did
mainstream
die.
that we've seen in a while. And while his run lasted pretty short because of his murder, he amassed a large cult following that even through his public controversies stood by him. So X has been in a ton of controversies, so I'm gonna try to get the main ones out of the way, but there's a lot here, so I may miss a thing or two. First though is his juvenile issues, because before turning 18 he had charges for drugs, break-ins, theft, gun possession, and was even fined $86 for attempting to commit suicide by running into oncoming traffic. But these are far from the
86?
worst things he was accused of doing. In 2016, Ski Mask got into an argument with Tables, which was his and X's manager at the time. Ski stormed out and later called X while drunk and lied, telling him that Tables had taken thousands of dollars from X. Later in the day, X and some others broke into Tables' apartment. He then proceeded to threaten Tables with a knife and by some accounts accidentally stabbed him during the confrontation. Then X and his crew left, taking Tables' laptop with him. Surprisingly, Tables said he would drop all the charges as long as the laptop was returned, claiming he didn't want to ruin X's life over one bad decision. And Tables kept his word and X paid for all Tables' hospital bills, so I guess they were good. Days after being released on bail from the stabbing, X was arrested and charged with robbery, assault with a deadly weapon, and home invasion, all from an incident which took place the year prior. During the incident, X allegedly pistol whipped the homeowner 3 times and left with an iPad, an iPhone, a Sony PSP, and $20. In the end, X pleaded no contest and was sentenced to a whopping 6 years of probation. And then came the more serious issues. While awaiting trial in early October of the same year, X was arrested again later that month on charges of aggravated battery of a pregnant woman, domestic battery, and false imprisonment. Well, at first this relatively hadn't blown up into that big of a story. Things changed a lot after Pitchfork leaked the testimony of the alleged victim. X pled not guilty and even denied the allegations in multiple interviews, but the details were scathing nonetheless. The victim delivered over 2.5 hours of testimony, which resulted in 142 pages of transcription describing the dark patterns of abuse. If you're a fan of X, you're very familiar with this story, and you probably debate whether or not
Yeah,
this
I don't know
actually
anything
happened,
about him,
so I'll
so
try to
this is
cover
all
this
new to
as
me.
objectively as possible. Apparently, the two met at one of X's shows, and soon after, he invited her to live with him. The first instance of alleged abuse occurred about 2 weeks after she moved in, when he slapped her and broke her phone because she complimented a male friend. Later that day, X left the room and returned with 2 grilling implements, a barbecue pitchfork and a barbecue cleaner, and told her to pick between them because he was going to put one of them in her vagina. She chose the fork. He told her to undress. He was lightly dragging the tool against her inner thigh when she passed out. He did not penetrate her with it. Following that initial incident, X began his pattern of violence toward her, and when the couple moved to Orlando, he apparently threatened to kill her almost every day. After one occasion of her humming one of X's friend's verses, he headbutted her, punched her, stomped her, and put her in the bathtub where he continued hitting and kicking her. And
Bro,
she
what
added
the
on,
shit?
he also wanted to cut out my tongue because I was singing the song. She attempted to flee down the street, but he tackled her, all in all
Bro, it
causing
is
her
not
black
that
eyes,
serious.
a lump on the back of her head, scratch marks and bruises, including a large bruise on her ankle where he stomped her. Throughout their relationship, she alleged that X had broken about 30 plastic clothes hangers on her legs, tried cutting her hair, and even attempted drowning her in the bathtub. Then, while X was in jail for separate charges, she hooked up with another guy and X was upset, obviously. He confronted her about it and proceeded to put a knife to her neck, strangled her, and called her a hoe. Occasions like this apparently happen regularly, with the same disgusting behavior being repeated over and over again. Apparently, it got really bad when he found out she was pregnant, threatening to kill her and the kid, and beating her to the point where her face was almost unrecognizable. For a little bit, he allegedly held her captive until one night she escaped. Throughout this whole saga of all these accusations against him, X also continued doing PR moves like donating $100,000 to domestic violence causes, and even tried to host an event to support victims. But the whole actual legal trial was extremely complex for a lot of reasons, including public pressure for multiple petitions to free X, and even the victim asking for charges to be dropped and declining to testify. Eventually, after his murder, she still maintained that she didn't want him to receive jail time, and X's lawyer claimed that if X hadn't died and saw the trial through, the worst he'd get is probation. There were also phone calls to his mom that were released after his death where he declined doing everything he was accused of, and the situation was even more complicated when Pitchfork wrote about a secret recording where X allegedly confessed to domestic abuse and other violent crimes.
On October 23rd, 2018, new audio surfaced with the late rapper XXXTentacion admitting to committing multiple violent crimes and threatening to kill his ex.
Until I started f***ing her up, bro. But I started f***ing her up because she made one mistake, and from there, the whole cycle went down. Now she's scared. That girl is scared for her life.
Later, he says, I will kill that bitch if she play with me.
The issue is, though, because of the editing of the audio clips, it was kind of hard to tell what X really meant with some of the statements he made. However, a bit before the audio was leaked, a Snapchat video of X beating on a girl when he was 15 dropped. His lawyer claimed the video was in jest and not an actual act of aggression, but it made the accusations look a lot more credible than they already were. And since when X died, the case was closed, it's hard to fully validate all of these allegations, but I remember being a fan of his back then, and from what it seemed like, it was true to an extent, and it was kind of hard to rationalize back then.
I think I've heard
so
like
feel
one
like
or two songs, but that's really it.
And
honestly.
while X was a
I
crazy
never really
guy
got
all
into
around,
it, but
Rick James seemed pretty cool and normal until he got some drugs in his system. Rick James was a massively popular singer, songwriter, and record producer. His long career in music.
The only thing I know about Rick James is that Dave Chappelle skit. Skit. That's the only thing I know about Mr. Rick James.
Was very iconic, with a bunch of albums going gold and even his project Street Songs going platinum. And if off the top of your head you can't think of a Rick James song, you've definitely heard his hit song Super Freak, which surprisingly didn't win a Grammy, at least until MC Hammer sampled the beat and made his own hit with Can't Touch This.
I never knew who the singer was for that song.
However, one thing about Rick that was, but might not be very well known anymore, is that he suffered from addiction with many different drugs. And these drug habits in turn led to a bunch of erratic occasions and even hospitalizations.
I was off into drugs then at that time, seriously, and it was like a time in my life when things were happening real fast, and I didn't quite have a serious grip on, on things.
To make matters worse, he had a stroke because of a blood vessel bursting during one of his shows, and then he had a hip replacement surgery, which was in part because of jumping around on stage, and probably because of his substance abuse as well. And this intense drug addiction created problems in more areas of his life than just health. During his era of heavy cocaine usage for about 5 years straight, Rick claims to have spent about $7,000 a week on the drugstore alone. And this rampant drug use inevitably led to a decent amount of crimes as well.
It was a month ago yesterday that Rick James was arrested along with his girlfriend Tanya Hijazi for allegedly imprisoning a 24-year-old woman in his Hollywood Hills home.
I'm not gonna lie, bro, looks
with a hot cocaine pipe and forcing her to commit sexual acts on his girlfriend Tanya Hijazi.
During a binge that lasted around a week, Rick and his girl at the time were arrested on charges of kidnapping a 24-year-old girl and holding her hostage for around 6 days. During this time, they tied her up, forced her to do sexual acts, and burned her legs and abdomen with the hot end of a crack pipe.
According to police, the 25-year-old alleged victim claims she met Rick James and his female companion at a party. She says the trio then returned here to James' Hollywood home. It was on the nights of July 16th and 17th that alleged victim claims she became a virtual prisoner here, held at gunpoint, even tied up and tortured, she claims, by being burnt with the hot end of a crack cocaine pipe.
Because of all these crazy things, Rick was facing life in prison. But instead of taking these charges seriously, a year later, while out on bail, him and his girlfriend kidnapped another girl. The person they kidnapped was a music executive who believed there was a business.
Bro, these are all criminals.
Following the ordeal, she claimed throughout the 20-hour period that she was held hostage and that Rick and his girl continuously infamously beat her. Eventually, James was found guilty on both occasions, but somehow narrowly avoided the torture charge, which would have been the one that put him away for life. While serving a 5-year sentence, Rick lost a civil suit against the music executive he kidnapped and was forced to pay her almost $2 million. And after serving just 2 years, Rick James was released. In years following arguably the peak of his criminal activity, Rick was accused twice more of sex-related crimes, one of which was with a 15-year-old girl, and Rick was being sued for $50 million, but he did end up beating both cases. Then though, at just 56 years old, Rick was found dead in his home due to supposedly natural causes.
Oh shit, he died?
Although it's kind of hard to see what is so natural about his official death, because he did have a lot of drugs in his system. However, the coroner surprisingly said that none of the drugs or drug combinations were found that were life-threatening in and of themselves. So it's a shame that Rick dealt with so much drug addiction because of the harm that it ended up causing so many other people. If you like this video, you might like my video about some music videos that were extremely controversial in their time, many of which were banned.
I did not know that was it already. Alright fellas, that was the end of the video. Beloved musicians that were horrible people. This was a crazy one. I did not know that most of these were... I didn't know XXX was bad. But at the same time, I didn't really know that much about him. I didn't really listen to that many of his songs, honestly. But the only ones I did know that were bad was Elvis, and I did know a little bit about... What the hell is his name? Chris Brown? Was that Chris Brown? Anyway. Oh no, James Brown. My bad. Chris. I'm getting so confused, bro. I'm a little tired. Anyway, I'm back. I'm happy to do more reactions with you guys. So hopefully soon, really soon, I could get to do more reactions. Maybe I'll bring my girlfriend back on here, or my brother Big C. Anyway, I'll see you guys on the next one. Hope you guys have a great day, a blessed day. Take care. God bless you. Peace out. Please subscribe. Please. God, to subscribe.